Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
We're here with our first tea time in like 2 weeks. Sorry. It's gonna be a little up and down as we go through the holidays and vacations. But Mom was down visiting my sister and totally spilled the beans about my YouTube channel, even though I haven't really told a whole lot of people. So, hi, Caitlin.
Hi, Caitlin. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. She said she was gonna watch all the videos. We'll see if she did.
Yeah.
But we'll see. This is a test. Text me when you hear this, Caitlin. Anyway, we have a lot to talk about today because we saw Harry and Meghan more in the past couple days than we've seen them in a long time. And of course, the day they both do something, I'm working. But actually, yeah, all three events I was working, but that's fine. So the first is that Meghan did this minding the gap talk through like the New York Times or something. And she basically, she looked really good. She looked happy. She looked healthy. She had that hair that I want to know how to do. Like those soft curls. I don't know how to do that.
You need someone to do it for you.
I mean, I think that is key.
Yes, that's
but
key.
Emily, I have friends. Sorry, I just said Emily's name out loud, whatever. I have a friend who can do that.
But is it partly just her natural hair?
No. Those soft waves.
Some people are really good at it.
I'm not.
I think that's
Neither
rare
are you.
in non-hair. No, I know.
I'm blaming you.
Neither am I a non-hairstylist.
Anyway, real stuff. She looked happy. She looked good. She looked very relaxed.
Yes.
So she basically talked about how she's been like cold calling senators to talk about paid family leave, which I think's funny, but basically more talked about how she doesn't see it as a political issue. That paid family leave is a humanitarian issue.
Yes. And I mean, part of that, it's a little maybe dodging around it. I don't know, because everything here is political nowadays in the United States.
That's true,
Science,
but we don't have to buy
medicine,
into that.
Everything's political.
I think a certain
Right.
party wants to make everything political, and we don't have to buy into that. We can say you're wrong.
True. And it shouldn't be a political issue.
No.
That's for sure. And there's no reason that everybody, no matter where you fall on the political spectrum, couldn't agree that, taking time off to care for a family member is something that is a societal value that we should be supporting by paying for it.
Yeah.
But,
well, I saw someone, it was someone from like Canada or something, basically saying like, how can Americans not want change with their medical system? And someone did a really nice response and basically said, almost all Americans do want change, but we've been divided into kind of us versus them camps, kind of on purpose by the people who benefit from these, systems being in place. And so we're never going to agree with one another. And I thought that was like a really good response, is that I think if you polled people, especially if you had like conservative outlets poll conservative people, almost everyone would say that they want paid family leave.
oh, that's undoubtedly true. When you poll issues, people are often wildly in favor of them. But
Yes.
when you put a political party with it, it all changes.
Yes.
It's like back when the ACA was passed, and after a couple years, and the whole popularity of that, and people in Kentucky, if you asked them how they felt about Obamacare, would trash it and say it was
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah.
But if you ask them about, I forget what it's called in
The
Kentucky,
ACA,
something like Connect Care or something, which is the version
Yeah.
of the ACA in Kentucky, they raved about it. So, it's all perspective. And I'm sure you saw it, but there was video of Diana answering the exact same question about her, I think it was AIDS advocacy or visiting with
Which
AIDS
the
patients.
right again made political when
and
it wasn't political.
How political that was. And, she said it was a humanitarian thing, which is absolutely true. And not only like humanitarian, it's just a humane and human thing to do.
Yes.
And so, I think that was a pretty good, apples to apples, almost
Yes.
exact comparison of.
I still remember, I think it was on the Crooked podcast when they went out, like one of the guys went like into the wild and like, interviewed voters, and this will stick with me for the rest of my life. But they interviewed this guy who was dying. He had chronic renal failure. His kidneys were gone. They weren't working anymore. He was having to go through dialysis. A horrible way to die. just to not sugarcoat it. You don't want to die because your kidneys or liver. And basically the host was like, hey, Obamacare would help you immensely if your state would open, I forget what it was, or like expand Medicaid. Yeah. Like this, if they were to expand this, it would help you. It would open up avenues for you that you do not have as you are dying this horrible death. And he said no, because if they open it, people who, quote, don't deserve it will get it. And I was just like, oh, like, how do you argue with that? You can't. Yeah.
You can't. It's like there's this whole, significant minority, I hope, in this country that does not care one whit about anyone else. Yeah. And only unless it's them. And everything has to be a zero-sum game where if I gain something, like someone has to lose, or if someone else gains, somehow that means I'm losing. People don't seem to see that we could all help each other. I mean, you can see it in vaccine stuff. You can see it everywhere, where the whole sort of collective societal goods have fallen by the wayside because people only care about themselves and people who they think are like them.
Yeah. Which I think actually Meghan said in this talk. They were talking about like diversity stuff at work and how it's almost all benefited certain people and not others. And she actually talked about how that also doesn't have to be like a zero-sum game, that we can all benefit from these things.
Yeah. I mean, and I mean, just the kind of, we all have to live together in society. Yes. So it seems like we can either turn that into like combat on everything, or we can help each other out and realize that helping each other out helps everyone, and that even if someone gets something you don't get today, maybe down the road something will happen so that you're the one who benefits. And if not, then maybe just it makes a happier, healthier world that is better for everybody. But it's unfortunate people can't see that.
Yes.
And now for the total petty. Can I just say my favorite part of her interview?
Yes.
Is where she said she never buys anything online without a promo code.
It was on the list.
Because that is my
without a promo. Although I think
that's my motto in life.
To be fair,
look for the promo code.
To be fair, I think some of the brands she orders from don't
offer promo codes.
But yeah, no, that was very. So okay, we're gonna skip around a little bit.
I mean, she clearly.
Yes, we're gonna skip around a little bit because Mom can't read the outline.
Oh, I'm sorry. I probably can't. I didn't even know we had an outline.
And what do you think this is?
I don't know.
Okay.
Words.
She
on
has.
Screen.
Despite being very attractive and very wealthy, she has this relatability factor and this kind of warmth to her that I think is lacking in a lot of kind of other famous people and obviously the royal family.
Well, yeah, and I mean, she has a lot of life experience before she was wealthy and famous.
Yes.
And I think, people can do with that what they will. I mean, I think some people completely forget about, kind of black it out and forget that they were ever one of the common folk.
Yeah.
And some people, it just becomes an inherent part of who they are. And I think she's more like that.
Yeah.
And with the royal family, at least those born into it, they've never never had to online shop for themselves or think about a promo code or think about a lot of things that us commoners have to think about all the time. Yeah.
Well, and I think her mom has kept her very grounded. And I think she's not ashamed of her past. Like, I think she's actually kind of very proud of how hard she's worked in certain arenas to get where she is. And I don't think we really accept that from women very well. Just her not being ashamed of it. And it almost seemed like the royal family wanted her to be ashamed of it. And she's not willing to do that.
Well, yeah, because there's nothing, I mean, there's nothing to be ashamed
Well,
of in
no.
not having a lot of money or not having all the advantages in the world. But I think that some people, presumably and probably by their words and actions, the British royal family, thinks that that's, quote unquote bad or
Yes.
somehow lesser or, I mean, that somehow that inherently makes one less worthy because, they weren't born into wealth and privilege. And, that attitude comes off in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So the other thing I also wanted to talk about is, so she was doing this talk with a woman named Melody Hobson, who's a CEO of a financial company, because Archwell is moving into kind of also not sustainable but kind of fair investing. And they were talking a lot about ambition among women and how it's kind of seen as a bad thing, that if, and that really played out in the royal family. I mean, the fact that Meghan wanted to work was like absolutely not. But it's a factor here too, in that a lot of times ambition in women is seen as a negative thing. But I always love, not love, but it's always interesting watching Meghan interact with other women specifically. Because I feel like as women, sometimes we can watch how a woman interacts with another woman and take some things away from it. And I feel like Meghan always spends time to like prop other women up. And they have these really great conversations. And that was a big contrast from other members of the royal family.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it gets back to, I think you either have kind of empathy and relatability or you don't.
Mm,
And where you come by that
yeah.
probably is, as many different people as there are stories. But I mean, um, I think it's harder, obviously, maybe not obviously, because I'm sure there's people who can do it. But I mean, if you've never really needed empathy or relatability from others,
Yeah.
I think it's probably harder to dole it out. And if you're born into immense wealth and privilege, uh, I think it's, I think it's probably hard for anybody
Yeah.
to relate. I mean, but there's things you can do and ways you can do things that make it better instead of worse. And
See, what I was trying to get to was that there are a lot of women, both in the, because I'm part of a job, career, that has really poor mentorships, and that whole thing, nurses eat their young, has been proven true, at least through my personal experience. And I think there are a lot of women who kind of attack other women. And I guess what I was trying to say is, as a woman kind of watching, you can sometimes kind of peg, even through a TV screen, of like a woman who's not really, who does that, who
yeah,
isn't kind to other women. And I feel like Meghan doesn't do that. Like, I watch her interactions with other women and I'm like, okay, all right, checks out.
yeah. No, I think I mean, it's kind of stereotypical, but unfortunately too true too many times, is that women become very competitive, I think. Um, and I think sometimes just almost play into the stereotypes. Uh, I don't know, but it can be seemingly problematic, and it shouldn't be. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there should be a, women's club like there's a men's club, I mean, or maybe not. I mean, maybe everybody should just,
Yeah. The
uh,
men do seem to look out
but I
for each
mean, yeah,
other.
I mean,
And
and
sometimes
historically,
women
men,
don't.
right? Men historically have had these like old boys clubs or
Yeah.
whatever, which are problematic to the extent that they exclude women. Uh, but obviously, there's benefit to that,
Yes.
and I think that women and um, other people who've historically been kind of excluded from those old boys clubs, because it's generally old white
Yes.
and moneyed boys clubs, but um, that people could benefit by helping each other. And it's clearly not helpful to be antagonistic with each other when you're already having to fight all
Yeah.
of the historical, crap from the old boys
Okay, we're
clubs.
moving on because this one section's 15 minutes long.
Okay.
So we're moving on to Prince Harry's Wired interview. And I've often said that my interest in the royal family and politics overlap a lot,
Yeah.
which we've already shown in the last 15 minutes. So he basically said that he learned from an early age that the incentives of public... Well, so, okay, first I want to talk about the tone difference. Meghan was very like, oh, don't read the tabloids. They're bad for you. I coupon and had this really nice conversation. And Harry's Wired interview was like, my family sucks. Media sucks. He had like a bunch of nicknames for him. But he basically said that he learned from an early age that the incentives of publishing are not necessarily aligned with the incentives of truth. Which is, I think, important. And I think going through all this, Harry and Meghan are kind of primed to talk about misinformation because I think outside the UK, people kind of saw what happened to them.
Yeah.
So it's like, when they talk about it, it's like, okay, you're coming from a place of personal experience.
No, I think that's true. And I mean, that is the story of our times about the incentives of publishing versus the incentives of truth. And I mean, people want to say that media has a bias, but the bias is to make money.
Yes.
And the way they do that is because fear and loathing encourage way more engagement than kindness and empathy. And so from everything from all the issues Facebook's having to everything else, if what drives engagement is hate and fear.
Yes.
And so that's where these organizations go because that's how they're going to get the clicks and the likes and the whatever.
Yes. All engagement is good engagement.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
To them. All engagement is good engagement.
Yes.
Well, and I like that he basically, every time he does one of these interviews, he has said, I see a lot of similarities between the treatment of my mother and the treatment of Meghan. Because I feel like there has been a push, the whole thing with Diana rocked the royal family. And I feel like there's always been a concerted effort to separate, like, no, we didn't do this again. This is different. She deserved it this time. Okay. Saint Diana has been sainted now. We did nothing wrong. Meghan deserved everything that happened to her. It's very different. And I always appreciate how Harry, basically anytime he's given a chance to speak, not about a specific, if he's not giving like a speech in an award show, basically goes, I see them the same.
Well, and I think they are the same.
Well, I think they are the same.
And I think that was, it's highlighted, like I said, when you can see the tape of both of them kind of getting similar questions from people.
Yeah.
Because, obviously the questioning drives at what they're, what the questioners are interested in or their certain slant to things. And, they both want to make it look like they're meddling in politics. They both want to, however it is, they want to, they were both kind of cast as outsiders, although Diana really wasn't an outsider per se. She's part of the British aristocracy. Yeah. So since they couldn't kind of other her about that, they othered her like she, was a lunatic who, they'll find a way.
Yes.
They'll find a way. And it is good that Harry speaks out about it.
Yeah, that he sees them the same.
Yeah.
Well, and I also think, too, just like the unwillingness to call off the dogs when there's obvious signs of distress. I mean, he said back in, I think it was something for the Me You Can't See, or that TV show or something, basically like, they're going to keep going until someone dies. Yeah. Like, that's the line. There's never, with both of them, there were obvious signs of distress, and they just kept going for money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is gross. And then, like there was some UK, I think her name was Flack. What was her first name? Sarah Flack? It was in the UK. She was on some reality TV show. The tabloids hounded her for all this crap, and then she killed herself. And, of course, after that happened, it was, Caroline Flack. That was her name. Yeah. And they were like, oh my gosh, how could this have happened? This is so sad. Oh. And it's, like her, it's Britney Spears now, it's Princess Diana. It's, they kind of pick a woman and they just hound her until something really bad happens. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe those other people did that. It just plays over and over again.
Yeah. Well, and because, to some degree it works.
I know. Yeah.
The comments the last couple days that I've been seeing about, the stuff you were talking about yesterday on the podcast, liar, liar, Meghan's a liar.
Yeah.
It's all, and people buy into that.
Yes. Because they want to.
Because they want to. They want to grab onto something to excuse their, racism or, whatever it is that is the seemingly invalid reason to hate Meghan Markle. They're going to latch onto it and say, look, we told you she's a terrible person.
Well, and I think these things don't have answers, but I'm going to ask you these questions anyway.
Okay.
Which is, it gets down, how do we call attention to crazy shit without amplifying it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, there's the easy, obvious ways of, don't click on it, don't retweet it, don't, if you need to talk about something, screenshot it and do that because, at least on social media, the clicks and the engagement that way are what drives things. So if fewer people do that, it helps. But until, some of these, I don't know what we do about the print media, but although in a way they're all online these days, and so it all comes down to clickbait to some extent. But, until some of these companies make a decision or somehow are forced into a decision that they really have to knock this off.
Yeah.
I don't know what we can do about it because, it's clearly benefiting them monetarily, and when it comes right down to it, that's all they care about.
Well, and then the second question too is I saw a comedian, there was a video on Twitter, who was basically like, we used to have two parties that fought each other and now we just have two parties that live in completely different realities. And it's like, how do we get back to where we at least share a reality? Because it's hard to solve any problems if you're just kind of off pretending nothing's wrong, or you're pretending that there's, a pedophile ring being run out of a basement of a pizzeria. Like, how do we that doesn't have a basement. How do we get back to where we at least share a reality? I think
I don't know. People seem to believe just things that seem insane. The guy who says there's something in the vaccines that mutates and grows inside you, and it, puts some alien creature into.
What did you name yours?
You can't fight that.
Yeah.
How do you fight? I just don't know. It seems so obvious that I keep coming back to this because it blows my mind. But with all this anti-vax stuff, that isn't the quote unquote normal anti-vax stuff where we've had a, group of people over the past couple decades that, have decided that childhood vaccines are bad or whatever. Now we have this whole population that has happily and without any issue gone along with having a bazillion vaccines over their lifetime. Their children's lifetimes have gone into the military and gotten vaccines, have done all these things, and now suddenly have decided that one vaccine, I realize there's multiple versions, but a vaccine associated with a worldwide pandemic that's killed at least 5 million people and maybe as many as 20 million people by some estimates, if you really kind of play out all the deaths that are associated. Is,
the mark of the beast.
Is the mark of the beast, or is going to grow aliens in you, or is Bill Gates trying to put a microchip in you, or is, just whatever, some sort of phony horrible move by the opposite political side to make you do something that is bad, and it just it's
Yeah. I think history books are going to zone in on Kellyanne Conway's alternative facts. Because I think once someone who represented the President of the United States said, yeah, the facts don't suit our narrative, so now we have alternative facts. I think that was, even though it was probably happening before that, I think, again, a representative of the President of the United States acknowledging that reality didn't suit them.
Right.
And that it was okay to just, have alternative facts.
And that continues to now. I mean,
yes.
It also goes with those same exact people being willing to go out in public and outright just lie.
Yes.
I mean, politicians have always, there's been areas where they kind of massage the facts a little bit, or, say something that isn't 100% true. But just outright saying black is white and white is black and 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 is new.
Yes.
At least in my experience. And I mean, as recently as, I don't remember if it was yesterday or the day before, Kellyanne Conway is going on there and saying she worked in an administration where they never heard of supply chain issues, there was never any shortages, blah, blah, blah. And I guess they think that we can't remember a year and a half ago when the shelves were empty of toilet paper and nurses were wearing garbage bags because there was no PPE. And I mean, they will look you in the face.
Yes.
And just say 1 + 1 does not equal 2.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to, people take that at face value.
Yes.
I mean, people will, it's new. I mean, when politicians used to get caught out lying, it used to be something that was embarrassing, damaging, depending on how significant it was. It could be, career ending or at least career altering.
Yeah.
And now it's just like, it's Wednesday. Let me go say the sky is down and the land is up and
it's Bill Gates' fault.
And it's all Bill Gates' fault. I mean, it's just
insane.
Well,
and I guess it goes back to kind of the roots of it, of why do we have so many people who are so kind of willing to get sucked into this nonsense. And it's just, I don't want to say kill them with kindness, because I think we're past that point. But it is kind of troubling that we had enough of a population who was kind of willing to go down this rabbit hole. Because it has to come, at least to me, it has to come from a place of hurt. Like, you don't believe all this crazy shit if you're okay. At least in my opinion.
Well,
something's wrong with you.
Probably, yes.
Maybe not like diagnosable, but like, I just feel like, on Reddit, there's these things kind of like people who, it's like QAnon recoveries. Basically people who like went down the rabbit hole, at some point realized, I'm in a rabbit hole, and got out. And usually it's because they had a friend or something smack the crap out of them. Sometimes literally, into like, and they basically are like, hey, I had like lost my job. I was in this place where I was home all day on the computer, and something seemed a little crazy. And I even thought it was crazy at first. And then I started reading it 16 hours a day. And then Well,
but I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think there's some of that, but there's just a group of people who live, I mean, the left always is accused of having some sort of bubble, and I'm sure we do. But if all you do is sit around and watch, I mean, Fox News, which compared to OAN and Newsmax is maybe even not that bad these days, which I can't believe I even say. But I mean, if you sit around and watch Fox News and OAN and Newsmax, and that's your only exposure to anything, you're going to come away with certain ideas. And I mean, I will sound like the coastal elitist that I probably am, but if you look at the people who go to Trump rallies, or you look at, I mean,
Trump doesn't like them.
Right.
Trump doesn't like the people.
I mean, I'm not sure it's the best and the brightest. I mean, it's
they're not sending us their best.
And I mean, and I'm not saying, again, I mean, the frustrating thing is the people who seem to be the most hardcore Trumpster types are probably among those that would be helped the most by the policies that the current administration is trying to get through Congress. And they absolutely vote against their self-interest. They think against their self-interest. It's just the right's ability to have convinced a population that somehow the right is their friend.
Yes.
Is an incredible feat of PR and propaganda.
We've gotten completely off topic.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, but let's talk about Pretty Dress. So I was watching the live stream from the Intrepid Gala last night, and I literally went, oh, Red DP, when she came around the corner. I really liked it. How did you feel about her dress?
I really liked it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's things you could nitpick about.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm just saying, if you stare at it for long enough, but I mean, that is exactly what I think, and that's probably what it was meant to do, and good on them, and it was stunning.
Yes. And what's funny, she had a poppy on. I didn't even notice she had a poppy on until this morning. We're getting dog snores.
They're super impressed with this whole thing. The dogs are.
They're listening to us. We're making them into, I don't know, radical.
We're lulling them to deep sleep, apparently.
But she had a poppy on, and I didn't even notice it until this morning because I was so just like, boobs. Yeah. She looked nice.
She did. She looked great.
And she had I really liked the retro kind of makeup with the cat eye and the high bun and it looked nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So basically it goes back to, again, a lot of the attendees had really nice things to say about Prince Harry and his military experience. And the royal family hates that. Yeah. They hate any time his military experience gets brought up. Because, again, he's the only member of the, most recent generation who served. And they know that people like him because of that. And so they do not like when it is brought up.
Yeah.
Which is hateful.
Yeah.
Very hateful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I think, so people will disagree with me on this, but I think at least from Betty and Charles's camps, I think there are some signs that they didn't like how all of this went down. And that there might be some regrets there. Not that they give a crap about either of them personally, but I think there's some realization from certain parts of the royal family that how this went down was not good for them.
Well, you'd hope by now they figured that out.
Well, I don't think some have, but I think that to a degree there are certain camps that know that this didn't go well. Yeah. And I think part of that was just the immediate pulling of Harry's honorary military titles. Yeah. Again, while he's the only member who's served, who's actually gone anywhere. And Prince Andrew still has his.
Yeah, which is nuts.
It's nuts.
I mean, I think they have multi-levels of problems with his military service. Yeah. It happened at all. But also, I mean, I think it really did. I mean, I think that's largely where he got his, kind of empathy and, I mean, he was right in there with everyone else in situations where there's, bonding and, everybody sort of has to pull together and it really doesn't matter that he's Prince Harry, mm-hmm. And he clearly took a lot away from that experience and clearly felt very, very connected to his fellow soldiers. And, I think probably that whole experience helped him work out a lot of the trauma that he'd gone through in his earlier life, much of which was inflicted by his family. And I think, all of that kind of being amongst the common folk and actually managing to learn from that and grow from that and then turn around and use your position to help with, wounded veterans and all of that is, not something that anyone else in the royal family has done or even probably can relate to very much.
Well, I think kind of the military was the first part where William and Harry's paths really started diverging in that Harry all of a sudden had, I mean, he still had his upper crust aristo friends, but he also was kind of exposed to a lot of different types of people. And William very much went into, aristocratic, country folk friends where they want to live this little fantasy in the country. And I feel like that experience was really when the two brothers started doing very different things.
Yeah.
And I think it shows now as adults.
Yeah, no, it does. It definitely does. But
I also wanted to say, we didn't know Meghan was in New York City until they showed us she was. And so there's always this thing going on with the royal family I think they leaked, obviously, but the whole, hater thing is, it was always Harry and Meghan's fault. They were always behind the leaks because they wanted attention, blah, blah, blah. But the minute they left Kensington Palace, the leaks stopped. And now as working professionals, Archibald doesn't leak.
Yeah.
Like, ever.
Yeah.
So it kind of blows a hole in that whole, narrative. Oh, they were just super attention-seeking, so they were leaking against themselves. The leak stopped when they left.
Yeah, and I mean, part of it's just some of it's the difference of, the royal family make, big announcements when they're going places and everyone knows where they are or is supposed to know kind of where they are. And, here, except for like the president releases a daily schedule and, we generally know where kind of the high echelon of politicians are maybe. But, most even celebrities in the United States or, whoever don't go around announcing, 2 months in advance about these, tours they're going to be making or visits or whatever. It's much more, the fact that they just kind of go about their business, maybe is somewhat of a sign they're kind of settling into being Americans,
Yeah. I think it's more just like, it again goes into that there hasn't been a repeat of behavior where they leak.
Right.
If they put out a statement, they put their names on it. They go do things without telling people they're going to go do them.
Yeah.
So it kind of blows a hole in that narrative that it was always them.
Yeah.
Because when it's just them, they don't leak.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on.
Fancy.
Moving on. Last section. Oh my God. So I made you watch my video from yesterday.
Yes.
And Meghan actually addressed this lawsuit in the Minding the Gap talk, and she's acknowledged that it stretched on basically from before she had any kids, and now she has 2 kids. It just keeps going because, again, I don't think it's a real lawsuit. I think it's a headlines. We want to generate that. What do you think is going to happen? What do you think about it?
I don't know. It seems like the defense to it all seems nonsensical to me.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about British law, really.
Yeah.
Other than,
she is a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer, but she's not that kind of lawyer.
No. And other than to the extent it might have influenced the American legal system, I really know nothing about the British legal system. And other than I know just from having seen lawsuits from many famous folk over the years that it is easier to sue in Britain for things that would be deemed free speech here. And there's not a whole lot you can do about it, especially if you're a famous person. But all of what I know about it mostly comes from listening to your podcast yesterday.
Yeah.
And I would say that I don't know why they just didn't kind of call it a day when they lost.
Because it's not about losing or winning. No, it's about popping. I think there is again, kind of going back to what I said in the beginning, I think in general, outside of the UK, people kind of see what happened. Yeah. That the tabloids, again, attacked a female member of the royal family, that the royal family helped. I think there is an acknowledgement of that outside of the UK. And I think to a degree, that does permeate UK press in that they know there is a general belief that they did something wrong. I don't think they care,
right?
Because they're going to keep making money off of it. But I think they're kind of using this as we can keep talking about Meghan because she's suing us. Even though they're appealing it, they're still going to put it as, oh, she sued us. Yeah, we lost, but we're appealing. So we get to shit on Meghan Markle some more.
Right. And well, I'm sure that's what it is. I mean, it's all for show.
Yes.
It's like, and even if in the end it amounts to nothing, the filing of the lawsuit, the hassle of, not the filing, the defending on a kind of ridiculous basis the lawsuit, the continuing to kick and scream and defend even when they've been told no.
Yeah.
Again, it's kind of like a Trumpian thing, and you just, keep lawsuits going as long as you possibly can, and then you kind of slink off and pretend they never happened when you lose. And I think you're right. I mean, it's a way to keep something that they can spin as negative in the news. Because the real stuff that's happening in the real world, like the last couple of days, is positive and is harder to put a negative spin on. So they'll find something that they can spin as a negative to keep that out there.
Well, and I think the more this Jason Knauf guy talks, it actually does just look worse for Kensington Palace. Yeah. Because you read the tone, because the whole big thing now is, they lied about working with Finding Freedom. So now they've lied about everything. And again, we told you so. They're horrible people. This is proof, even though it's not.
Right.
But that doesn't matter. Again, alternative facts. Doesn't matter. Right. But you read the tone of these emails, and it's obvious who had power and who didn't. And so as most of us think Kensington Palace is kind of the center of all of this. And Jason Knauf was the communications director of Kensington Palace at the time. And it always goes back to him. And you can see in these emails that he was really making these choices, and Harry and Meghan didn't have a choice. So, again, it goes back to, supposedly the palace never leaked. The palace never talked to the press. It was all Harry and Meghan's doing. It was all their fault. And the more he talks, it just seems that he's kind of proving our point.
Well, and the whole, we want to tell our friends not to cooperate, and then they're told, no, you can't do that. You could surmise that from the beginning, the powers that be wanted to keep the option open to claim that they cooperated, which, emails to their friends saying don't cooperate would have been hard to incorporate into that theme. Yes. And so...
well, and it's just sad. I mean, because, really, they were facing this crazy press, and the palace should have been on their side.
Yeah.
That's what they exist to do, right? Jason Knauf is a high-level staffer, but he is staff. He's not even family.
Yeah.
And he was basically, actively working against them.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe setting them up to...
Yeah. Well, I try to not put on my tinfoil hat, but his name just comes up over and over and over. I mean, Thomas Markle's saying he's who he talks to at KP, right. And then all of a sudden this letter is leaked, and Jason, his name just comes up all the time.
Right.
And he got promoted.
Right. So he's falling upward.
Yes.
If he's some sort of fall guy, he's falling the wrong direction.
Yes. Well, not even a fall guy. It's always now when it suits the narrative, the family and staff are different. Yeah. And it's just, there's no way he did all this crap without the principal royals of Kensington Palace being Will and Kate knowing about it. And if this was a Lone Ranger, he just did it wrong, screw Jason Knauf, why does he keep getting promoted?
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
It's a good question.
Okay. I have 45 minutes of audio. Okay. Do you have anything else to say?
No.
Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. We hope you're having a good Thursday. We will not be back next week because I'm gonna be getting a tan in Hawaii.
Must be nice.
Must be nice. Have a good week.
Bye.
Bye, Caitlin.